Hi, my name is Leah Day, and this is a video for Quiltmaker Magazine. This month I've shared a really awesome table runner project that's going to give you a lot of new skills. You're going to learn a little bit about piecing, a little bit about applique, and how to not only quilt it with free motion design, sharp stippling, but also how to applique those leaves and stitch around them with a walking foot. So let's get on the machine and see how this works. First machine quilting with the walking foot, and then free motion quilting in the outer area too. So I'm going to get started, and I'm using a walking foot to apply a nice blanket stitch to the edge of my leaf appliques. And this is just a stitch that takes a straight stitch to the right, and then it takes one stitch to the left, and then stitches right back to the right, and then goes forward. It's a pretty quick stitch, and it leaves a really nice effect on the quilt. I found after some experimenting that a satin stitch just didn't look as good, and I really like the look of this blanket stitch instead. Now, why am I using my walking foot for this? Well, we've already basted the quilt top, so this is 3 layers, the top, batting, and backing. And so using the walking foot is going to help this feed through the machine very evenly. If I used a regular open toe applique foot, probably wouldn't feed as evenly through the machine. And here's the other cool thing. Using a walking foot, it's more like quilting, you're able to feed those layers evenly and get a really nice consistent stitch length, and that's what we're going for with this project. So after I finish up stitching all around the leaf, and as you're working in those really deep curves, you're going to want to pivot a lot. You see how much I'm rotating the quilt around in order to make those shapes. Whenever you pivot, stop with your needle in the down position and stop whenever it's on the right side of the design, whenever it's falling to the right, and that's going to help the pivots really look good as you go around those deeper curves. Okay, so as I finish up the applique, I'm going to switch. I'm not going to change my foot. I'm not going to break thread. I'm just going to change my setting. And all I've done is change my setting to a straight stitch with a 1.5 millimeter stitch length. I like really small stitches on my quilt. I think it looks really good. And I'm going to stitch just straight down the middle of the leaf and then branch off into each segment of the leaf. And I actually marked this on the fabric just so I would have kind of a game plan and I'd be able to stitch it really easily. When the walking foot's on the machine, it's kind of clunky and it's harder to see where you're going, so having those marked lines can be really helpful. To get from one area of the leaf to another, I'm just travel stitching. I'm rotating the whole quilt around and stitching right back down along the lines that I've already quilted. This is absolutely allowed. It's going to reduce the number of thread breaks that you have on your quilt. It's going to make it more stable, and it also, I think, looks really, really good. I like 2 layers of thread when they're on top of one another like this. So after I finished up stitching through the middle of the leaf, I began echoing, and what I'm doing is I'm lining up the edge, like kind of the inner prong of the walking foot with the edge of the leaf applique. So it's a little bit less than 1/4 of an inch between my needle and that edge, and I'm just stitching right around that leaf shape, echoing, and then as I curve inside to stitch on the inside of those nice deep curvy areas, I'm just trying to carefully maintain that nice stitch. A lot of times I have to do a good bit of rotating, but the nice thing is this is such a small project that's absolutely doable. Just take your time, take 1 stitch at a time, and make sure that your needle always lands in the down position, so as you rotate or reposition, it's always going to work out just fine. I ended up surrounding my leaves with 3 rows of echo quilting. I think this looks really, really nice, and you can see this effect, how it just makes each leaf stand out so beautifully. So now that I've finished the leaves, I'm working in the background area, and I've switched to free motion quilting. Now you could quilt this background area with your walking foot if you wanted to stitch lines or continue to echo quilt. It's whatever you like to do, but I really wanted to show you a variety of techniques in this video, so I switched to free motion quilting. I'm using some beautiful Arafil thread. It's 50 weight Mako cotton. It's nice and thin and it feeds through my machine very nicely for free motion quilting. So what I've done is stitched this beautiful design called sharp stippling, and let me show you how it works. Basically going to stitch kind of a wavy flame shape. Come to a point, and then swirl back. Come to another point. You can kind of spiral around if you want to. There's a little spiral. You want to keep it really open and fluid. This is an independent design. We shared an article about independent designs in the January-February 2015 issue of Quiltmaker Magazine. But this design in particular, I think, is really well suited for this table runner project because it just looks so nice and it kind of just matches with those leaves so nicely. But you could do stippling in this area. You could do a lot of different designs and they would be just fine too. One thing I want to bring to your attention as I quilt this is how I'm quilting it in more or less a row. I'm working from left to right. Right now I'm kind of swirling my way upward to work against the leaf. And you cannot see it as well when I'm in that kind of off-white section. But as I get down into the border area, you can really see I'm just kind of swirling up and over that border and keeping the design really consistent and fluid. It's a very easy to design to stitch and you have a nice narrow area to place it in, so it's going to be no problem. Just take your time, practice the design, and stitch it, really evenly and carefully through this area. So that's it for this video. I really hope that you enjoyed learning all of these cool techniques, and I hope it's opened your eyes to see that you can combine techniques as much as you want. You can stitch with a walking foot, you can switch to free motion, you can switch back and forth. It doesn't matter. There's upsides and downsides to both techniques. A walking foot is always going to give you a beautiful solid stitch, and it's going to be controlled by your machine. In free motion quilting, you're able to do so many more designs though and play with that really fluid texture that you can create by moving your quilt in all directions. But of course, it's a little bit more challenging to get those beautiful stitches always consistently the same size. So definitely play, experiment, and I'd love to hear from you and what you think of this beautiful flowing leaves table runner. Until next time, let's go quilt.